I call to order the Tuesday, January 28th, 2025, 1 p.m. School Board Workshop. Please rise for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance and the National Anthem. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, say that you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed out the twilight's last gleaming, whose bright stripes and bright stars through the perilous skies, o'er the ramparts we watched, where so gallantly streamed. Then the rocket's red glare Please be seated. Okay, we'll move on to roll call, starting down that side of the table.
Lauren Ramirez, present.
Janie, Ruddy, present.
Derek Barr is present.
Christy, Chong.
Will Furry present.
LaShakia Moore.
Okay. Very good. Now we will move on to 2.02, Board Member Liaison Updates. We'll start down there with you, Ms. Ramirez.
All right, so we'll start with Belterre Elementary School. So they did not have a SAC meeting, but they did have a PTO meeting. And coming up, they have their Sweetheart Dance on February 7th. So they're going to be utilizing the 360 camera, nail salon, volunteers, all the fun stuff. All the money will go back towards field trips for different grade levels. They have a Bobcat 5K coming up. Health vendors are welcomed. It's essentially, there could be a cost for the health vendors, and the money goes back to the school, or if they just want to have a table and just present stuff, then there's no fee for that. So if anyone's looking for a 5K, they could use some runners for sure. They have a science night coming up on March 11th, so that's still in the works. And the PTO will be celebrating the Cross Guards at their campus. So coming up, so that should be exciting. I know we'll be doing that as well for our Cross Guards. Their next meeting is February 13th. And other than that, they're just, they have a talent show coming up. They started a guitar club for 5th grade and up. So there's lots of extra activities that I haven't seen that are popping up. So it's pretty nice, lots of involvement. Matanzas, other than their winning principal of the year, they're accepting the National Honor Society applications coming up March 3rd is the deadline. Yearbooks are on sale. They still are offering online tutoring, and there's a weightlifting event today at 4:30 versus DeLand. Boys basketball is coming up. Lots of good things happening at Matanzas. EPAC. Dr. Holliday here. So there was a wonderful meeting that I was at, and it's pretty nice what they're doing. They're trying to increase access for ESE, anyone with all abilities, and they actually initiated that in, I believe, last year. And so there's 5 schools that have been involved in that. So they'll all be coming back at the next meeting or to present how they've been increasing things. So March 12th will be the next meeting. So we have Old Queens, Rimfire, Indian Trail, Matanzas, and FPC. So things are just looking really, really good. We're just trying to get more parent involvement, and I think things are gonna, just grow and increase. Some fun things they've been doing: escape rooms, just all different types of things going on. Working on just any issues that parents may have, just talking through parents and communicating. So they're doing awesome. Vincent's Clubhouse had a ribbon cutting, so a lot of them were there at that ribbon cutting. And Virtual Teen Hall just happened on the 23rd. It was student safety. The next one will be March 27th. The topic will be taking care of yourself. So high school students, middle school students are encouraged to register for those events and attend. And that's what I have for updates. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Ruddy?
We have BTMS, who is having a challenge to their students this week to read for a minimum of 100 minutes and put it into Beanstalk. So we hope that the students will participate in that, and maybe we all challenge ourselves to a little extra reading on that. They're also hosting a family night on February 4th, which our superintendent is also going to be speaking at. But there are a lot of takeaways for parents to support literacy in the home on that event. I also met with the leadership of that school recently and have been really pleased to see some of the practices in action to execute on their school improvement plan are related around instruction. FPC moved their SAC meeting because of the ceremony yesterday, which was wonderful. So their meeting is not until February 10th, but I did meet with that leadership team as well, Mr. Bosserdet, and we had a great discussion about their needs and what they're looking for in terms of support from school board members, as well as accessing some previous data sources regarding how to better engage students at the high school level and creating unique programs around meeting their individual needs. They did have a basketball game, but I haven't heard the turnout on that because of the event yesterday, so I'm hoping that, anybody know what the score was? No? Okay, so I'll have to look it up. I hope our dogs won. I've also connected with the band directors across the county in order to see what we can do to help open up some opportunities for instrument ownership for students across our county, regardless of income. And so we are working with the Ed Foundation with a potential partnership. So I'm excited to see where that's going to go. With the African American mentorship program, that program has been essentially split to provide equity for females as well as males. That's great. I believe that was under your leadership, Ms. Moore. And so one of the items that we're initially tackling is some presence on our website, and I've gotten some support from Ms. Henderson, and also connecting with Carl Jones, who organizes the male mentorship for the African American mentorship program. So I'm excited to increase getting the word out, especially with our students who need some additional supports after returning from perhaps Rise Up. And we also attended, this is not directly related to the African American mentorship program, but mentorship in general. Take Stock in Children is a statewide mentorship program and framework that is organized through the Ed Foundation, and they had a wonderful dinner to honor those volunteers, and that was lovely to join them. It is small but mighty, and a really great program based on a framework of solid research with what really is needed in mentorship, right? Besides that contact between a supporter and a student. FTC, they have their SAC meeting tomorrow morning. I did meet with the director at FTC, and we are discussing some possible solutions to some of their main pain points relating to capacity and trying to attract talent to provide those instructional services for students in the trades. So I'm looking forward to further discussing that with them at that meeting tomorrow. That's those are my top areas.
All right, thank you very much. So been busy like most everyone else. So Rimfire, on the 16th, we had our SAC meeting, and we had a pretty good turnout. We were looking for some additional community members to be a part of the SAC team. We've reached out to several. It looks like we're going to be able to field that additional SAC team member through some outreach that we've done together. Looks like we may end up having more than what was expected, so that'll be good. So we're not in the position that we are right now of not having enough involvement from the community. So I think we're working towards that to make sure that we're in good shape moving forward. Some great presentations from some of the teachers who are taking some field trips, just for example, of going up to St. Augustine and looking for ways to be able to purchase buses to get our students to St. Augustine and some other places. And we've approved some of those fundings out of the SAC money that we had for that. So it was a great meeting, and I'm glad that we were able to do that for those students and the teachers to be able to provide that. We're looking forward to potentially chaperoning that event, so we'll see how calendars work out. Looking forward to that. The other thing is DJJ meetings, Flagler County Sheriff's Office Explorer Program. Our Explorer students from across the state will be coming to Flagler County to see what our Flagler County Sheriff's Office Explorers programs are doing as a model. And then also the torch run for the Sheriff's Office will be, the Special Olympics will be February the 22nd. So some of these dates I will push out if it's needed so we can make sure that we have some sort of representation for that moving forward. That's just a quick overview of that. CGST, I do have some information if we, I'll come back to that. Flagler Tobacco Free Partnership. I met with them this week and really trying to see how we can bolster up participation and working together collaboratively with that group. Really had a good meeting with Ms. Stone and Mr. Williams as we begin to make it a point working with our partners and looking at our policies as we begin to look at our current policies and how all these play together. But looking forward to working with them in the future and how we can get, again, making Flagler tobacco free in that group. From a legislative standpoint, we've got information as our legislative days, March 18th and the 19th, but for the next 12 to 13 weeks, we'll begin working with our lobbyist, Mr. Bob Serra, in his group, and we'll be holding meetings every Friday for that next 12 to 13 weeks as we begin going through that process. And we'll keep our board members up to date as we go through that process. Bunnell History Day, community member reached out. That's going to be in June. I passed on some information to Ms. Moore yesterday in regards to that. We'll have more coming out. It's, I guess, June the 7th. They'll be wanting to look at our old schoolhouse from a historical standpoint during those times. But we'll work with Mr. Johnson with that. The other one, talking about Flagler Technical College, working with the Department of Agriculture. They're looking for, they have some seized commercial motor vehicles and trailers that our truck driving school needs. So we're working with the Department of Agriculture. They've got, as I said, they got a pretty good lot full of nice trailers that they need for our truck driving school, and they're willing to donate as many as we need for the technical college. So we're working with their agency and Renee and her team, Ms. Kirkland, excuse me, to make sure that we can help accommodate that need that they have. Lastly, if I can just go to one thing, because I need to give you this date, Ms. Moore, is related to I may have to come back to it. I don't want to waste a lot of time. Here it is, sorry. Florida Bicycle Association, this is from our CTST meeting, is now accepting applications for school grants for safety students. They're willing to pay schools to tech road safety, and I can pass that information along to you. But that's just some information that's come out of our CGST meeting. I think that's probably enough.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Sorry.
No, very, very informative. Thank you, Mr. Morris. Go ahead.
All right, Benel was supposed to meet tonight, but they will be picking another date due to illness, but they do have a fundraiser going on right now called Comfort for Paws, and they are accepting donations for the Flagler Humane Society. That could be blankets, beds, dog bowls, things of that nature. And then February 6th, they have their Sweetheart Dance. That will be the daughter dance. Wadsworth will be having their Marine Science Literacy Night on February 27th, so I want to try to be there for that and check that out. And Flagler, I was able to attend their SAC meeting a couple weeks ago. And just to highlight them as, it's just another great option that our schools offer. We have one taking advantage of it now, and it's going really well. So just love that we have so many options here at Flagler. And the Student Health Advisory will meet today. If I don't make that, then I'll catch up on those notes. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, well, if anybody tuned into the last meeting, you'll know that I was battling a respiratory illness, so it was a little difficult to get out in person, but was able to, as I got on the mend, I was able to get out to a couple of liaison assignments, and one of them was the Flagler Auditorium Board meeting, and a lot of great things happening there. They had a blockbuster show of Lee Greenwood, which was a sellout event, and was very popular, and even the sheriff came and gave I believe it's a honorary deputy status to Lee Greenwood here in Flagler County, so he got a badge and everything. So there's some upcoming shows there as well for the, it's called Abracadabra, a tribute to ABBA, and then there's also a tribute to the Beatles coming up. These are both in February 7th and February 21st. And also, last night we all celebrated a great night at the auditorium, which was the stars of Flagler Schools, highlighting and celebrating our Employees of the Year, our Teacher of the Year, Rookies of the Year, Principal of the Year, and it was just a wonderful night. The place was full of energy, and just another blessing that we have this venue to use to host events like these right here in our county. And with the Ed Foundation, lots of great things happening there. One of the highlights this week was actually attending this Take Stock in Children appreciation of the mentors, as Ms. Ruddy had mentioned previously. And it was a great night, and I know that Teresa Rizzo, who leads the organization, was grateful that there was that we attended. And one thing that was great about that is I met one of the mentors and got to share. He shared some of his stories with me, and he was telling me about a young boy that he was mentoring that came from Cuba. And here's a boy that was raised in a environment where you were told what you're going to be, and then here now he's arrived in the States and has a mentor who's showing them he can be anything he wants to be. So that was, I thought, an amazing contrast. And now that boy is determined to be a computer engineer. So we wish him well in those endeavors as he takes ownership of his own future here soon. Aside from that, the Ed Foundation has some great events coming up also that you might want to mark your calendar for. The very popular 21st annual Mardi Gras ball is coming up on March 4th. Excuse me. We have the 4th annual Joe Rizzo Memorial Golf Classic on April 7th, and Josh Cruz book launch on April 17th, Senior Scholarship Night on May 6th, and on the annual dinner on May 22nd. So mark your calendars for those events. So that concludes my liaison updates. So now we will move on with our agenda, and we will go to 3.01. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda today, Superintendent Moore?
We do not have any changes.
Okay. So being that there are no changes, I'm just going to ask the board for a motion to adopt this agenda to move forward for today.
Move approval.
I have a motion from Ms. Chong
Second.
and a second from Mr. Bars. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously, so we will move forward with this agenda, and we will start off with academic services, 6.01, strategic plan spotlight. And we have Dr. O'Brien.
Board Chair, did you acknowledge public comment?
I apologize, I did pass
I do not
over that.
know that we have
Do we
anyone
have
signed
any
up.
public comment signed up? Okay, so being that there's no one signed up, we will move on with to 6.01. Welcome, everybody.
Good afternoon, Board, Superintendent. Right, so we are coming before you today to bring a spotlight to Goal 5 of the strategic plan. So this year, the format has been a little bit different. Instead of doing an end-of-year review, we're spotlighting each of the goals, going through where we are in the outcome goals for each of the different areas, and then talking to you a little bit about our strategic priorities related to those goal areas. The first part here, we cannot click on this to get you what we wanted to show you, but is just to orient you to the dashboard. If you are looking for our targets, our baseline, and kind of where we're moving the data for each of the goal areas, you can find that information in the About Us section of the website under Strategic Plan, and go to the Strategic Plan dashboard. So Goal 5 is all about operational efficiency, ensuring our operational efficiency and aligning resources with strategic priorities. So what this goal is really about is focused on ensuring that we are operating efficiently and effectively to optimize our resources that support teaching and learning. It's really about the establishment of standard operating procedures and making sure that we have systems that ensure our accountability related to being fiscally responsible. And why do we have this goal? It's aligned with our guiding principles of teamwork, excellence, quality, and consistency, and trust and respect for all. As I'm sure you're aware, it also aligns with our Flagler Forward priorities of becoming a premier learning organization and ensuring we've got those procedures and frameworks in place to sustain our growth. So what we'll be doing now, we have our operational folks here at the table, and we'll be going over each of the outcome goal areas, starting with plant and custodial services. So we have Mr. Corey Bush, our Director of Plant Services, and Nancy Anderson, our Director of Custodial Services.
Good afternoon. So our goal, what we're trying to accomplish, is a decrease in the time from when a work order has been submitted to the time of completion. When we originally started that, we were around 14 days, and we are talking working days, and currently we're looking at 11 days. So we have decreased that, and what we're looking at, how we're doing that is, we found that the work oftentimes may be getting done, but some of the paperwork may be lacking in a day or two, which does affect that timeline. So that's what we're getting with our staff, to continue to lower that and look at that matrix as far as making sure that along with the work, they're also doing the paperwork to complete those jobs, to reduce that number to under 10 days.
Hello. Custodial service and plant services goals and their hurdles kind of align to the same. But since the strategic goal, I have seen it decrease by a large number, because like Corey said, that they are not only completing this task, but they're following through with the paperwork, and they are reaching out for support when they can't complete a work order at their site. So that's another reason why I have decreased. So are there any questions for plant services or custodian?
Board, any questions in this category, plant services or custodial services? No? I have a question then, if no one, when it comes to the timing to complete the paperwork, is this physical paperwork where they literally have to write out their reports?
On the computer, they have to scour, they have to, I'm gonna say, master the library, they have to close it out.
Okay, so is this an electronic form that they're
Yes.
filling out? Okay, I just wanted to make sure we're using our technology efficiently, so, okay, very good.
Yes, that's correct.
Are there any that are not, I guess, just not using it electronically? Is that, you say you're trying to get to 10, but you're close to that. I'm just wondering, what's the next step you think going to try to get you to 10?
Continuing to look at, because we can see when a work order is put in, and our supervisors will, look at when they've completed to then when the paperwork is not being, we try to ask them when they complete the job to do the paperwork as that's all part of the job.
Sure.
Just depending on how that looks, but at least at the end of the day, before you leave, come back a little early and do all the paperwork. And for plant services, all of our staff, they all have iPads.
Yeah.
So we have that ability, and if we're around the school, we have the connection to be able to do that. So we've given them the tools to be able to do that. We just have to stay on top of them to make sure that they're doing it.
Does this go into some sort of a queuing system as they're requested throughout the district?
The way they're set up, it's by trade, so depending, and by school. So if they put in for electrical in zone 1, that would be automatically routed to Ben. And that is one thing we've sped up, because before it would be routed to a supervisor who then had to assign it. So part of reducing that time that we found it, we're losing or gaining time, if you will, that goes to them to then be able to get the work order directly. And if it's something that they feel that they need to talk to the supervisor, then they would just say, somebody's asking for this, can we do this or not? But it's also helping with lowering those days.
And does that include work that we're doing internally and work that we have to outsource, or is this just internal work that we're doing within our own resources?
Mostly it's internal. I mean, we do create for projects, on plant service side to keep track of certain things, but majority of this is internal, the maintenance side, if you will, or custodial side, what they do as well.
Very good. Okay, that's all the questions I have. Any other questions, Maureen?
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
No more questions, we'll turn over to Ms. Angie Bush, Food Services.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So Food and Nutrition Services has migrated to a new metric since we started the strategic plan and measuring efficiency. So we are currently measuring our efficiency by meals per labor hour, meals produced and served by labor hour, and our goal is to increase it by one increment per year from 19 and 23-24 to 21 by the end of 25-26. We did go down a little bit. I'm going to talk about strategies and quickly why I believe that is. So meals per labor hour is calculated using an industry standard formula, but there's room to adapt the coefficients of the formula so that they can speak to and be adaptable or appropriate for your operations. For instance, if we were completely conventional, we would have a different formula, meaning if we were washing all of our trays and we didn't use disposable goods and everything was from scratch, the formula would look a little different than if it looks for an operation who's using all disposables and heat and go, and we're somewhere in the middle. So we're trying to find the sweet spot for this. As the formula indicates, meals per labor hour, it's a fraction, meals labor hour. So there's two ways to increase that. Increase the numerator meals or decrease the denominator labor hours. So we're looking at 4 areas. Our staffing, of course, is number 1. Are we appropriately staffed at each of the schools? So that's a work in progress, determining what appropriate is. It's tough when the absenteeism is at the rate that it's at, because we have names on paper quite often, but those names are not always on site on a daily basis. So we're working through that. And really assessing our standard operating procedures, and are we doing things the way they've always been done? Are some of our senior employees so ingrained in their habits that they're doing things inefficiently now for the time and day that we're in? Number 2 is a facilities overview. We're working with plant services to assess some of our serving lines and our serving areas. Some of them are older and they were built not for the needs of our needs today and the student populations that we have and that we're serving. Some of them have some inefficient workflows. If you ever go over to FPC, it's a little bit like a maze to get from the kitchen to some of the serving lines. There's a lot of steps that the staff has to take to get from point A to point B that are unnecessary. So we're in the process of looking at each school and then prioritizing the schools and seeing what can be sustainably and affordably done to improve those areas. Training and standard operating procedures, Dr. O'Brien already spoke to that in the intro. We have a lot of work to do in refining our standard operating procedures and updating them and just making sure they're very clear and concise and communicated and trained well. We're also working to find some new innovative ways to provide training to our staff members. One of our challenges is most of my staff members are 186-day employees. That's 180 days, and those are school days, along with 6 paid holidays. When they're on site, that's all they can do is feed the students. So we're working to overcome the challenges of some additional training as well. And then, of course, barriers to participation. If all of the meals are free, the question is, why doesn't every student eat why don't they all eat breakfast, and why don't they all eat lunch with us? And so some of those things are assessing preferences, the times that the students have to eat, the efficiency of the serving lines from the customer experience, internal and external competition that we have, and then special needs menus and our allergies and how we're accommodating students that have special needs with their menus. Those are our strategies. Are there any questions?
I'm assuming that you're looking to increase this number while maintaining, let's say, the standard of food menu options, right? Because we know that you can make things faster with more processed food. And also with the adherence to safety, right? Do you guys keep a track of, well, if we push our efficiency this far, do we have more safety incidents?
We haven't tracked that yet because the metric is new, but finding this, I don't see this metric continuing to increase. There's going to be a finite stopping point for it at some point with assessment. So 21 is my best guess right now, and I don't see it going much higher than that without compromising safety and the things you just mentioned.
So how did you set this goal? You said you used an industry average?
The formula is an industry standard formula that's been around for decades. So I utilized the standardized formula and then just set the coefficients at the best way I could for our operations, somewhere between everything is cooked from scratch and the convenience that we have in our operations as well, and tried to hit, based on what I understand about our operations and what some of the other districts have done that I collaborate with, tried to hit what works for Flagler. I may have to adjust it realistically. The important thing for me though is to find a spot and stay with it, because that's the only way we're going to get consistent information, utilizing a consistent formula rather than changing it all of the time.
Okay. Is this a metric that the staff members are aware of, or how are they, what's the sentiment of essentially this goal being asked of them?
Many of our senior employees are aware of it, but we have not focused on it. So it still has training to come with it so that they all understand what we're looking at.
Okay, I see, thank you.
You're welcome.
So a couple of questions. One regarding the free lunch. You know, one of my biggest concerns when we went this approach was, you know, what is free is not always what everybody wants, right? Yeah, it sounds good because it lowers a certain barrier for some to attain, you know, nourishment. But then if you're offering a free item and people don't want to consume it, then we're essentially just kind of wasting food, right? So where do you have an idea of where we're at with that as far as from before when we had paid lunch and offering services to provide lunch for those that couldn't afford it versus now that it's been a little over a year now, right? Has it been a year? Yeah.
2 years.
2 years. 2 years now. Wow, time flies. That we've had the free one on the participation in that. Where is this something that we should continue? Because again, free sounds good, but if only half are using it, and before, 75% were using it, then, those are some of the metrics that I'm looking to see on the go forward for this program. Do you have any data on that right now?
I do. The participation has increased significantly in and of itself, and that's one of the reasons I migrated away from that, because I could come and show you the participation jumped quite a bit, but that's no indication of if we're efficient or not. That's an indication of migrating to the CEP program. So I think this is more indicative of what we're doing operationally and our controls that we're putting in place and our training and SOPs, et cetera. I'm happy to pull any data and do a comparison. We certainly have it from before CEP and after. And I will say, Mr. Furry, that we have to reassess at the end of 26, 27. We have to go through the reassessment process with USDA and see where we're at that point in time and make a decision to go forward, because it is an every 4-year cycle program. So we will be looking at that data quite closely coming soon.
Great. The reason for that question is during your presentation, you had stated that we have to wonder why, if we have free lunch, why aren't they having lunch with us? So that was, that question was the follow-up on that part of your presentation. So.
Yeah. That's how we find out what our barriers are to service. That because if a student isn't coming and participating with us and it doesn't cost anything, there have to be other reasons. Money is not the
So
the
is it I guess it either can boil down to, is it the quality of the food, or is it the fact that it takes too long to wait in line to get it? Some of these type of things. That's what you're referring to?
That is what I'm referring
Okay,
to.
gotcha.
Yes.
I can add in with that. So one, I love everything that you guys do in there. So I have 4 very hungry children, and they love, like, they're a fan of the free lunch, and then but the challenge I hear is the timing in line. But obviously that depends. There's a lot of factors. How many children? Do they get there on time? Because if a teacher has to bring them there. So I'm thinking, and correct me, so if the MPLH, if that number increases, obviously the time in line would decrease for the children, perhaps, more efficient, and then, because that could be a factor too. I know if they don't have enough time to eat and they're vocal about it, I don't have enough time, so I want to bring a lunch because there's not enough time to eat, but it's still great food. But obviously it's, work to be done, but there's a lot of factors, like just the way the building is structured. So, but it's nice that, you guys are working on that, and
We are.
I hear great things about the food, so just.
Thank you so much.
I love the free option, especially when we talk about just availability for all kids and equality. It's just great that we can offer that to everybody, and kids are just picky. I've had the opportunity to do school lunch, and I don't feel like the lines are long. Of course, Bunnell does have 2 cafeterias, so that might help. But like for my nephew, I'm like, we have free lunch, you can use it. And he's just like, I just don't want to, And my youngest too, like last year, he loved going to breakfast. This year, he's just like, no, I don't know, kids are picky, but but I'm glad it's available to them. I do wonder, is there ways? But I'm assuming you guys have ways to watch that and monitor how much food you're ordering and that sort of
From
thing.
the back of the house, there's not so much waste, because what we control in the preparation and serving and such is monitored very closely, and we have good processes and procedures. Once the food goes out into the cafeteria, though, that is where
There's the
we lose
waste.
a little bit of sight. We do have share tables at all of the schools.
Yes.
So that if an item is packaged and wrapped, it can be put on the share table. Milk and juice are on ice, and other things, most of the other things are on shelf stable. So there is that opportunity, and then the kids are free to go up and take a little extra if any of them are hungry. That's one. We do try and combat that, but that's an elusive problem that doesn't seem to be a really good solution for once the students take it out into the cafeteria.
Honestly, I recall being on lunch duty as a teacher. That existed even when lunches were purchased. And what I could imagine a benefit of free is that the administrative overhead of tracking down unpaid lunches, because the practice was not to turn away a student, even if their lunch account was negative. And then the manager of the kitchen is often having to track that down, as well as our investment in some of those automated communications that would have to go out to to parents. That's all
just-
saved.
Yeah. It's very helpful to not have to do that.
Mhm.
And not put our staff in the position to be collections agents.
Right.
Because that's really not that's not what they're here for.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. If there aren't any other questions, then we'll move on to transportation.
Transportation.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Board, Superintendent. So one of the primary focuses for transportation was to increase the on-time arrivals. Some of the mechanisms we used was to implement a van program for student transport to cater to those students in the FIT program and those students who lived in remote areas. Another mechanism we used was to track our on-time arrivals into the school, looking for those inefficiencies in travel paths and breakdowns of the vehicles. We also implemented a lease purchase program for new vehicles to eradicate those older fleet vessels, to bring in newer vessels to circumvent the amount of road calls that we were monitoring and tracking. So those are some of the things that we implemented to improve our on-time arrivals. Prior to me coming, there was an 87% on-time arrival. Now we are at a 90%. We're still operating in that 90%, and we're looking to get to 100 one day. So, are there any questions?
I just have a question related to maintenance. And of course, that has a lot to do with on time, if you don't have buses that are operational and so forth. And you've got great staff out there. Furthermore, I just want to say that, I'll just kind of back up a little bit. All of you have done a great job in welcoming us to come in and see your operations and what you do. From a transportation standpoint, I mean, what are the biggest challenges that you're seeing from your mechanics of being able to ensure that we can get buses in and get them out quickly enough so you can meet these expectations?
I think since the onset of COVID, there has been a slowdown or decrease in the amount or the time that it is to get the parts that they need, yes. So we've seen a tremendous delay in the delivery of parts. So that's one of the problems that they face.
Just the parts of being able to get that, but now you feel like that's pretty well taken care of, and they can get what they need and get it turned around fairly quickly.
To get it turned around, yes.
How much of the stuff that in the mechanic shop, do they have to push anything out from there, or what's the percentage of vehicles that have to go outside that yard to get repaired?
It's not very high. They're pretty well versed in knowing how to fix their own issues. We do have a service tech that comes every Tuesday to circumvent the problems on our buses that are under warranty. But for the most part, they can eradicate their own mechanical issues.
That's good.
I would say that for some of the body issues, we might have to send those out, but OJ's team has some talented folks that they can even do body repair on the buses. But some of the white fleet, if we have had a mishap, we would have to send those out.
Okay, great. And all issues are good with your drug and alcohol clearinghouse?
Yes, we have that under control.
Okay. All right.
Yes. Good. Any more questions?
How is staffing going for you?
We're still facing staffing challenges. At one time, we had an influx of applicants coming in. It has slowed down.
So I'll piggyback off of her question then. So neighboring counties, how many, I mean, we're seeing some, we've been hearing some that are leaving Flagler, going to Volusia, going to St. John's and other places. You know, before they were coming here, now they're going back.
So right now, we are the lowest paid district amongst our surrounding counties. So hopefully we can level the playing field and get back some of our employees.
And that is something that is directly influenced through bargaining.
Yes.
And this board will have an executive session in order to help give some direction to us related to salary and benefits, compensation for our employees, all of our employees, but also those targeted areas where we are finding it hard to fill positions. Also when it comes to staffing, attendance, looking at the attendance of our staff to ensure that they're there. Going back to Ms. Bush, as she stated, we may have the proper allocation, we may be fully staffed, but are those staff members showing up every day? Because of course, especially related to transportation, if they are not showing up, then that's going to impact our ability to be on time.
And your sub pool is pretty
Right
low.
now, we have no sub.
So,
Yes.
the day that we were there, or the next day, I think you were out driving and everybody else was driving, and, you know, and yeah, that takes away some of the administrative duties that need to be done. You don't leave your dispatcher to take calls and field calls and things of that nature, so it makes it very difficult, and that means Mr. Freeman's got to go in there and be a dispatcher.
Or driving.
Or driving a bus.
But we do experience that, right?
Right.
We know that when individuals have to come out of their role and their position and push into other roles, that does break down the efficiency within that department and within that department. And so as related to this, if individuals are having to come out, is that impacting our buses being able to be on time? Is that impacting communication to our families around the bus routes? Are there changes? All of those things definitely directly impact our buses being on time.
Absolutely.
Have you considered, or have we considered potentially bus drivers going into the classroom for to be a guest speaker? So just, you know, imagine, you know, when we met them that one morning, the ones that were there, I mean, they've been working 10 years for us, 19 years, a lot, you know, very long. And I mean, it can be a dream job for some. It's a split shift, full time. Imagine a high schooler, you know, graduating, you know, still trying to figure out what they want to do. They're, you know, paycheck, split shift. So I don't know, I just think, you know, if students, you know, they could hear about more opportunities, even like in the cafeteria, the timing, go in at 5:30 a.m., they're in there 5:30 a.m. to 2:30. That's a great shift for a lot of people. Graduate high school, that could be their first real job, and it's a career. But that could be just an opportunity that we could, like, as a team, think about, because I never had a bus driver come into my class career, but I would love to hear it. If I could park better, I would get my CDL. I really would. But liability, risk management. But I think, you know, just little things like that, it could get one driver.
Yeah.
We have 13,000 students, you know, how many seniors, you know, but I don't know, that might be a good opportunity. Like, your time is great, split shift is a great opportunity for some people.
And we do hire. We will hire someone fresh out of school. The problem with that is because the students see them as their peer.
Mm-hmm.
They
And
may
supervision.
have a different, you know, respect though. It may be, you know, like when you have just like a different teacher, sometimes students act different depending on the teacher. They may relate better. So just an opportunity, I think, you know, if you could get a few drivers out of that and change their life, they could start working best split shift ever. But thank you for everything. We had a great time with your team.
I think I know the answer to this question, but a follow-up is probably Ms. Kirkland back here. With your truck driving school, your CDL school, are there any that are after a Class B, or are they all Class A's? And are there any that are interested in not just being over-the-road drivers, but they do have an interest for passenger carrier?
They are all A right now, so offering a Class B is our next step in that program, pending facilities and that kind of thing. But they're all A, although we do work with the transportation department.
Yeah.
We work together to help with what we need and to train up anybody who's a little bit deficient.
Okay.
Maybe they hire.
All right. Thank you, that's all.
Okay. All right, well then we'll move on.
Thank you. We will
Thank you
be
all
bringing
very
up
much.
Thank you.
finance
Thank you,
and
thank you.
technology.
Bringing in the second round.
Yes. Two more objectives. And the first will be finance, so
Good
Patty
afternoon,
Warmick.
Chairman, Furry, board members, and Superintendent Moore. I'm here to talk about the goals for the Finance Department. As you are aware, our board policy is to have our financial condition ratio between 5 and 8%. What the financial condition ratio is a part of a statute that states that it has to be above 3%. It cannot dip below that. And how that is calculated, it is your unassigned fund balance at year end divided by the next year's revenues for the general fund. At June 30th, 2024, that ratio was at 8.5%, which is just above our 5 to 8% board policy. We were able to achieve that primarily by the use of ESSER grants. We transferred in a few $1 million of allowable cost from our ESSER grants and our amendments to help boost our fund balance. That is not a luxury we have going forward. I will say that what we have done, as you know, over 80% of our general fund expenses is salary and benefits. So on a weekly basis, we are meeting in staffing meetings to ensure that our staffing is in line, we're not overstaffed, we are properly staffed in different areas and our critical shortage areas. That is constantly looked at by the superintendent's cabinet team and staffing committee. So we will continue to look at that through the rest of the fiscal year and for staffing as we boost up for the 25-26 fiscal year. We do anticipate that ratio to dip some as our forecasting for 24-25, we are starting to get those numbers in, and we are short of where our FTE forecasting is. We are still waiting on our third calc, which has not arrived yet. Once we get that third calc, we'll have a better idea, and we will follow it up with a presentation and an informational workshop as we do every year. Any questions on that area?
Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to technology.
Great, thank you. And I wanted to introduce Louise Bosserdette, our Director of IS, Amy Kopak, Instructional Technology Specialist, and Teresa Phillips, Instructional Technology Specialist. We're going to kind of go over, this is a new goal that was added, implementing a comprehensive professional learning plan centered around technology and an artificial intelligence focus. So I'm going to ask Amy and Teresa to kind of dive into that, a little bit of the background and where we're at currently, and then we'll kind of move into how technology and IS supports the overall or overarching goal of operational efficiency.
Hi, good afternoon. When speaking about professional learning technology focus, what we have offered, we offer in hybrid format, in-person format, self-paced, and webinars to give a variety of different choices for our teachers. We offer them in the summer. We've done a fall series as well. We had 548 seats filled with teachers taking multiple different trainings throughout the summer and the fall, covering topics from AI to digital tools and increasing efficiency. Throughout the year, we continue to develop our on-demand training library and the self-paced Schoology learning opportunities that we have available for teachers. We also do the Tech Tuesdays, which we hope you all read, that are sent out every week to all faculty and staff with updates related to technology and that have a dedicated feature for AI in there. Our current focus is creating live webinars for a spring series for teachers, and also doing a live webinar series for during the workday for staff, targeting on how we're increasing efficiency with digital tools. We also are planning on identifying technology leaders at all the schools so we can form school-based tech teams to support the teachers and staff on their campuses. The leaders will be utilized in like a train-the-trainer kind of model and create a larger district technology team to support those goals. Lastly, we curated a collection of tools for teachers to use to instruct students on the digital literacy and AI literacy world, using like Common Sense and Learning.com, just to name a couple different platforms.
And then when it comes into the AI part of it, we continue to research and make sure what we're doing is well vetted and it's safe and make informed decisions around it.
We attend national conferences such as ISTE. We just got back from FETC to make sure we're staying abreast of that. I read daily updates and emails. Things change by the minute. And online trainings and pilots and programs. We started out last year around spring break time with the AI task force of just kind of a group of the willing that wanted to try and learn more about it and to learn kind of what they already knew, what their wants were, what their obstacles and what they saw as barriers to entry. And we gave them kind of a toolkit of tools that we had vetted to use and try and get feedback during the time, which we have done. We're sending them a follow-up email now or a survey to kind of see where they've gone, what they've grown, and what kind of the new barriers are and where they see from there. And then I'll meet in person or a Google Meet with that group as well. Many of the summer professional learnings all had an AI component, if not completely on that topic. And then at the welcome back ceremony, we did a presentation with all of the teachers to kind of make sure they had the same basic understanding of it and to get some of the common misconceptions out of the way and to show how it really is a tool and a help. It's not something that'll just do your job for you, and kind of share that part. We have a pilot with Conmigo going on, which is Khan Academy's AI tutoring tool, and we're targeting secondary. We're looking at a group of struggling high school math. We're looking at a group of advanced middle school math and high school math, and a group of Flagler students to see how that tool and getting feedback from them as well. And then we have several tools available for our students, like I said, that we've vetted from the resources and our teachers. Teachers use Magic School and Canva and Google's Gemini, as well as a lot of the other tools such as quizzes, are all integrating those tools within it. And then our students right now have limited access with Magic School and Canva. One of the neat things about Magic School is we can kind of give students access to sessions we create. Teachers create and pick the tools that they want, and they can see the results and feedback of it. And I just pulled numbers this morning, and we've got about 8,000 of those student AI sessions have been done to allow students whether to work with an individual chatbot or use one to help, idea or brainstorm from there. And then coming up next is Apple Intelligence, or Apple's version of AI is built into the hardware. And so that we're learning about more now. It'll be in all of the MacBooks, the newer level MacBooks, and then starting to roll out in some of the iPads for teachers. So we're looking at that part. Just keeping up with the research and then determining where to take that next step with students, like to give them more access so that it's not just the limited ones that are kind of allowed here. So working towards that way.
Then I want to turn this next part over to Louise. She's going to go over a little bit about how some of our data governance systems help support the operational efficiency side, as well as some of the work that we've been doing really across the entire district to support the sharing and standardizing of the standard operating procedures.
So as Ryan and Angela have shared, we've had to enhance operational efficiency. We've really been focusing on data governance by improving data quality checks, accuracy of our data, and establishing clear standards for using data in a meaningful way. We have been aiming this effort so that we can help make sure that our decision making is based on data, but we can't base our decisions on data if the data isn't perfect. So we've been really making sure that all processes are informed by accurate and clean and reliable data. To support the data quality and accuracy, we've developed and implemented a survey calendar. As you know, we report our data to the state in several survey snapshots. So we've created a survey calendar that goes out to all the stakeholders for the parts that they have. And the calendar includes instructional components so that, right now we're in our 11-day count for survey 3. So on the calendar invite, it says all the steps that every party and stakeholder has to take care of in order to ensure that our data is accurate, and so everyone is abreast of what is going on and the required information that we're collecting at this time. Additionally, we have created some internal dashboards that are allowing us to highlight data inconsistencies. And the nice thing about these dashboards is the ones that we've prioritized focus on helping several cross departments. So an example is our youth mental health first aid dashboard. By implementing that dashboard, every department in school is able to see in real time who has met the requirement for the youth mental health first aid training. It allows for HR to ensure that the data is accurate for survey snapshots. It allows our IS who oversees that to ensure that what has been transmitted matches, and we can track our percentages to make sure that we're meeting one of our other goals that we find in our strategic plan. In developing some of these dashboards, we see that we have a lot more collaboration and communication within the departments, because previously IS was seen as just handling the data and seeing what was there, instead of really working with the other people to find out what the root cause of some data inconsistencies were. We are also in the process of developing manuals and guides that will support the maintenance of clean data, and these guides will be embedded into the SOPs that are focused on that task. And again, all of the data that we have touches several departments. We spent a lot of time with transportation, a lot of time with human resources, and depending on which survey it is, kind of dictates which department we're spending a little bit more time with. So by having these SOPs and the guidelines, everyone gets to understand their individual parts for the greater picture. Any questions?
I have a couple of questions regarding the AI pieces. So, you know, AI is changing and the functionality, we're just trying to understand, right? So I'm wondering, what is the program in place to promote or teach AI citizenship, right? We used to call it digital citizenship, AI citizenship. For example, in my work, when we use AI, it's encouraged, but we still need to be mindful about putting self-identifying, or in my case, client-identifying information. Are we educating our students on that in some way?
So we've set out, and digital citizenship has kind of turned into digital literacy now, kind of pulling in the AI piece with it. And Common Sense Media has quite a few modules built into that, and they're actually housed in Nearpod, which kind of makes them almost teacher-ready and easy for the teachers to use to share those out. So we've shared those through Tech Tuesday with the teachers. We've also included some of it in the resiliency education that they're going through. It's mentioned through that with some of the pieces. And then we're also, as we continue to work with the teachers, like teaching, it's not just about teaching them and the professional learning, it's also what are you teaching your students? Like how are you citing it, like that piece of it, and continue to do it. Like we're meeting coming up in a few weeks with some of the high school teachers with those as move that way.
So with the PL piece that you have in place, which I like a lot of the different options that people can choose from, is there an accountability aspect to that in order to, like, what they're learning that they're putting into place in the classroom?
So a lot of it depends on the topic, but a lot of it's survey feedback, like how did it go in class with that, because it's kind of hard to tie some of the numbers to the specifics of it. And then we also track and look at the data usage of if it's on a specific platform or a type of thing to see if that's kind of coming up with the PL that's coming in. So some of the webinars might have been on Nearpod, which is a tool, and then we'll kind of look, and you can see kind of a spike in there showing increased usage tied along with that.
So your surveys then are kind of well after they actually take the PL, if they're providing input on how a lesson went with the application of that solution?
Right, so we kind of, while we're there, we'll do a discussion of what are their plans with it, and then kind of follow up afterwards with them, just for feedback with them as well.
On your technology goal, I'm just noticing that it's the only one without a data metric to measure. Are you lacking sources to be able to include a metric?
Well, I'll answer that. We were trying to look for adding some specific pieces in there prior to adding this one in, and really it was, we need to try and learn and try and get ahead of this a bit. So in developing this and kind of focusing around that artificial intelligence piece, there really wasn't anything there to reference to start. So really the goal was to get a comprehensive plan in place so that come 26, 27, we've got a piece. And I think that kind of hits maybe on your accountability piece where we've
I'm
got.
wondering if I could suggest that, like, for example, if you're going to make PL around AI, maybe you're measuring awareness of the ability that it's out there, or initial participation relative to other PL that you offer, so that, you know, it can be a SMART goal.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, I think as Mr. Teesing was saying, when we developed this new technology goal, because we weren't measuring anything beforehand dealing with technology in our strategic plan, we wanted to get this in now, and then as we develop our new strategic plan, because this is just a 2-year overflow, that our new strategic plan will have a measurable goal for technology.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but I do think that when you have a baseline for similar programs, you could probably use that as a comparative. But you guys are the experts, so you choose that. That's just a, recommendation. Regarding the data from some of the data discussions that are happening in PLCs at schools, there's some confusion over the interim progress checking and how they're supposed to apply that information in terms of vertical versus longitudinal data that they're getting, and if they're getting one or the other. So for example, if we want to compare, well, how did this year's group compare to last year's group, which is most often the data we get, but not necessarily what's the academic success of a cohort of students as they move along. So I'm wondering, is that been cleared up? Are there resources for that at the schools? In some of the conversations with high school at FPC, right, they're having to, hit a wall of getting students to graduate, meet certain requirements. But are we looking at maybe like that more vertical data and not just kind of put the buck on, hey, is it success or not, right?
I'm going to defer to Scott as he's been heading up the school improvement plans and working at a teaching and learning with those teams.
Yes, so we're just finishing up PM2 right now, and so then I will be preparing data for the schools, even down to the teacher level of students that are currently meeting that on-grade level expectations at PM2, but then also what their growth is compared to PM3 last year, so that at that individual student level, if that student is on track to be.
So that PM3 would have been, if I'm a 5th grade teacher, I'm looking at their goal from their growth from that individual student, not my old class.
Correct.
Okay.
So that will be coming. This week is the last week of testing.
And then from parents and students, when they're receiving their progress monitoring report, there's also been some confusion as to, is this telling me where I should be at this moment in time, or comparative to where the predictor of the end of the year? So for example, if I'm in 8th grade and I take the Algebra 1 progress monitoring assessment, and if I get that I'm on a level 5 right now, does that mean, well, I'm a level 5 now, but I still have room to grow in order to hit a 5 at the end of the year? Or is that predicting that if I took the end of the year test right now, I would hit a 5?
So all of the reports through the family portal with the state are measuring whether they are on grade level at that time. So they're not predicting at the end of year.
Okay,
It's
at that
measuring
time.
on grade level at that time.
Okay, thank you.
I have just one small question. What is your biggest concern when you go into conferences and you're gathering information, especially related to AI? What is your biggest concern for the district related to that? I mean, I know we're implementing so many different things, and is the future. But what is your concern? What do you see?
I want to make sure the students have access to it and are educated how to use it and how they'll need it in their future. Like, it's going to be huge, and it's a big thing we have to prepare them for. And it's moving so fast that we also do it in a way that's safe and best for them, but it is stuff. It is information that they need to be successful. And
that's your concern as a district for us to make sure that we do that. That's a concern for us.
I would say more. I mean, globally, I think it's all of it, just the training and the information. I just think it's huge and changing so fast. It's a really fast-paced way.
I think it has to be balanced with data privacy. I think when you look at a lot of the stuff with AI and how those large language models, which everybody really looks at, data in, data out, information in, we have to control what data that we are putting in, and we need to control what data sets that students have access to. And I think that's why what you see in the background of why we've kind of slow rolled some of this access. It's one of the reasons I really like Magic School, because it kind of creates a playground where you can get in there, you can play around with it, and there's guardrails. We know that the data sets that are in there, we know that they've been vetted more than just say, hey, let's go use ChatGPT. So it gives us kind of that. And I think it's a balance of looking at what tools are effective in protecting our data and our students' data and their personal data, but also then making sure that they have those tools so that they can continue to grow and kind of drive what AI is going to become, right? So I think it's a balancing act, and that's kind of the piece of this. That's why we're going to as many conferences to network with folks to get an idea of what this is. There's not a lot, I mean, one will say there's not a lot of books. There's a lot of books, but there's really not a standard to this at this point. It is a living, breathing, it is moving at the speed of light, and it's just a matter of kind of grabbing at it, making sure that we're taking that focus and making sure that we're protecting our students and our staff's data, and being pertinent with it, but also allowing them to have the opportunity to play with in a sandbox and grow.
And I think that goes back to my point, similar to what Ms. Ruddy was talking about, for having a metric for that portion as well, or the protection of that, and having that being able to be integrated into your strategic plan moving forward. But I mean, I realize that's changing, and that'll happen as the next time goes
Student data
forward.
privacy, the way that it's set up,
Sure.
is statute.
It's statute.
Like so that's what you can kind of get into this sticky whatever of it is. We still have to comply with state statute regarding personal data information. So I think that as it relates to this, absolutely is a component. But as a standalone, I'm not sure that makes a lot. I'm not sure that would be the most appropriate from the standpoint of it's statute. Like, we're going to do this no matter what.
And one of the things we worked through a lot last year is for our instructional staff really struggling with some programs that they have utilized in the past that are no longer available to them. That was very hard. I think we have worked to help them understand the why behind it, while also giving them an opportunity to still submit and request that something be approved, but helping them to understand why we have to go the route that we go. This summer, I had an opportunity to go to Colorado, to ISTE, I think it was, ISTE, and it focused a lot on AI. And I got an opportunity to mingle with a lot of different people. I will tell you, the teachers that were there were completely overwhelmed. They were, I mean, that was it was every single, some of them were like super excited, but most of them were overwhelmed because there's so many different options. But to answer your question, from my seat, what I'm most concerned is around keeping our students safe and keeping our staff safe as well. I think that is the greatest concern to me. It made me feel very confident and very proud of the work that has been done in the state of Florida, because the districts who were not from the state of the people who were there that were not from the state of Florida, they had no guardrails. It was just wide open. Whereas those of us who were from Florida, we were already looking at data privacy. Like, that was just a part of what we were looking for. But even with all of the focus and what I feel like we have done a great job with in the state, that is still my greatest concern, is our ability to provide our students with great opportunities and experiences that are safe.
And just to kind of add, Amy, how many student data privacy agreements do we currently have with vendors? Just a rough number.
A rough number, 150, 200.
Brian, what's the one you said you liked that's like safe?
The Magic
School.
School.
Magic School AI.
Magic School.
So when, in specific to the AI task force, like, this is, again, new and it's growing, and I get the fast pace. When this was set up, was there sort of a mission or a vision statement set up as part of that task force?
It was really set up just so that we were taking some action. There was a sentiment, I think, around a lot of stuff with AI that, hey, we're just going to block everything that we can possibly block and kind of wait to see what happens. And then the conversations kind of revolved around, like, we need a group of folks to kind of take action from different perspectives, like what is out there. It's very difficult for a small group of folks to keep ahead of this. So that's what the action piece was to gather information and kind of gather thoughts, ideas for implementation. I think this goal was really the attempt to kind of pull some of that stuff together from a standpoint of how do we develop our staff, our students, because this really is around, it says, education, but it's not really just instructional technology. We're talking about how does this impact everybody. But to your point, the folks who are on that task force are there's folks from finance, there's folks from transportation, there's secretaries, there's folks from guidance, there's technology team folks, there's just a wide representation of folks across the district coming at these things. So when you're sharing some of these things, and we did a lot of share outs, we did some trainings, and then you may look at that particular tool in one mindset of, hey, this was a project that was great, but when you put that out to someone, let's say in transportation, they go, oh wow, we could really use that to do that. So it's really, right now, was developed as a think tank without an intention of, say, to come back, other than to have a dialogue and an opportunity to gather that information and bring it back to the board to just say, here's what we're doing.
Well, that's a good perspective. The reason why I ask is because, there's varying questions here, and there's going to be more, and you're going to have some of the answers sometimes, and you're not going to have the answers sometimes, or that answer might come next week, or that might be antiquated question 5 minutes ago. So I get it. This is and I just kind of wanted to set sort of a vision for the board on how we hold this task force accountable on where it's going, right? So at the outset, I think it's reasonable to say, hey, we're going to look at this as a think tank right now. We're gathering data, we're getting ideas, we're going to pool all this here, and then, but ultimately, I think we need to have sort of a vision or a mission of where we're taking this data, what we're looking to accomplish with it. Right now, it just seems like, hey, we're trying to keep pace. We want to make sure that we're keeping our students in touch with this technology, and making sure that they know this is going to be a part and to use it in a way that is effective, safe, and efficient to advance their education, but also for our faculty also in the same respect to use it in that. But again, so where, in the end, what are we hoping to achieve? What is the outcome of all this effort is basically what I'm looking for the go forward. And is, we start with it using it as a learning tool, but is the next phase, are we doing this so that we can provide opportunities to show students how they could work in this field, right? Where we have leaders out there in the AI and technology that are now saying a college degree is not necessarily a prerequisite to work for our company. Now they're going to want those students to have some basic understanding and knowledge and tools, but it looks like that there may be an appetite to hire people right out of school for these type of technology jobs. And if we can start working toward preparing them as part of our career and technical education, however we place it within our organization, these are the jobs of the future, right? So
If I may, Mr. Fury, though, from working in a company that's tech related, I just want to clarify that I think that that's evolved because when you're saying no college degree to access these highly technical roles, that was for coding. And coding, those jobs are now being replaced by AI and or being applied with one person for the work of what used to be 3. So these roles, yes, there's no college degree that is, exists right now. There are certificates, but they're highly skilled, highly technologically orientated, where you're not going to be able to do that with, let's say, a JavaScript boot camp, right? So I don't want to give students the wrong impression there, right? I think this actually flipped the script a little bit in terms of, yeah, you used to be able to get in with a certificate, but now this is that higher level, very skilled application. Not saying that you can't get there, but we've got people maybe 15 years in, and they're creating AI solutions for our software, right? So it takes a lot of in-depth knowledge for that. So I just want to be careful with that message.
Well, it's not a message, it's an initiative that we can work toward, because there are different levels of entry, right? Mm-hmm. You have you have those that may require those skills that you're talking about, but there may be entry-level positions that can come right out, whether it's a certificate or with it. Because this is, when you look at kids today, when it comes to technology, at 13, 14 years old, they are whizzes. What they're accomplishing on their own through learning on their own, right? Just learning from what the tools that are available out there. Young people are accomplishing some pretty amazing things when it comes to technology. So I believe that's not setting any unreal expectation, but it's something to work toward. And mind you, we're talking about, let's just talk about a 9th grader that's going into high school next year. In 4 years, what's that going to look like? What is going to be needed to enter these jobs? There's going to be a high demand for this type, and Flagler Schools can be part of that initiative to send kids into these jobs directly out of high school. There's always going to be those that are going to go on to higher education and seek those skills that reach to a higher level, but there are others that could go into these fields as well and acquire the basic skills right here out of our learning institution. So it's something to consider, look forward to. We're just going to see how this industry shapes up and what the needs are as they go on. Because as you've all said here, this is all very fluid and we're getting new information every day. So to say that one thing is going to be this way or that way, even for next week in this industry, it would not be prudent. So that's where I'm going with that, Ms. Ruddy. So.
And I wanted to say I really appreciate, Teresa, you mentioned, getting the kids ready for, essentially the real world. But about 8 months ago or last year, when you guys had meetings talking about the Magic School, not Magic School Bus, but the Magic, Magic School AI. So the safety aspect, so I know with the new laws, you guys, Ms. Moore, you were very strict, like it has to be safe, so I appreciate that. And then you mentioned a lot of faculty went to that training and it was just volunteer, and I'm curious to see the next training, if it doubles, like how many more faculty want to do that, so I'm excited about that. But even more, the kids now, they really do need to know how to use it. It doesn't matter what career they go into. It could be allied health, it could be construction. It could change so many different things, so I'm really glad that there is a task force, and obviously it's newish, so thank you for that, because it is needed. I've gone into the classrooms, and kindergartners and 2nd graders, they're setting up the Wi-Fi's. Like I had to have, our tech guy do the Wi-Fi on my computer. They're doing it because they're learning from their teachers who are learning from your team. So I think if we just continue that, because we do need them to know that. If they're going to own a business, if they're going to work for a business, there are tools that they can use, whether it's AI or not, but technology matters. So I do appreciate it. I see it like going into the schools, the kids, and then the teachers, what they're learning, and hopefully we double those teachers going to learn more, the ones that are iffy about it, but because no one likes change. But
I think when we talk about our department and teaching and learning department, like all these parts have to move at the same time. Teachers have to be, we have to be teaching teachers how to use it responsibly, and teaching students how to use it responsibly, and having teachers teach students about the literacy piece of it, so because the students are using it outside of school too. So it's about using it, how to use it in education, but also giving them skills on how to evaluate tools. What is, something that is fake and not fake, and really using those critical thinking skills to be able to evaluate what is out there, what they're going to be facing in their daily lives at all the time. In addition to that, making sure that we're moving forward. So I think that it's not really a fear of the district, but my hope is that the task force can come together. We all need to come together and all need to be trying these things and not cowering from there. And where is the balance? Some of these districts are saying, no, we're still doing this. And some are going, yeah, go right ahead and use everything you want. And we need to, as Flagler Schools, need to find where we want to land that helps the students to stay safe, still helps us improve on all areas, and moves us forward as a district. So I think that is the focus that we need to. When we talk as a department, that's how we speak.
The safety part, I know we've talked about safety, but, and this may be in place, but just, you know, if anyone has an Alexa and they are just talking about red cars and then all of a sudden red cars are on there. So I think I'd like to see somehow, as we get this into the classrooms, that our teachers, which I know they're telling the students, hey, you know, you have to be careful, but as standard, you know, because what one class does, every class should do. So almost like a checkoff, and maybe this is in place, but this is an idea for the task force. So before students utilize this tool, they need to go through a training and get a certificate, and it has to say, you know, you don't talk about your social security number, just, you know, whatever it may be. But because, you know, the data, the safety, but they don't really understand, but even if they can go through a training and then they continue every quarter, every year, whatever it may be. But I think I would like to see that from like a parent perspective, because children don't really realize what they're saying and doing, and then, but even as adults, we say it and then it shows up, you know, we're getting listened to. But that would be great to see, like, or to add on to some type of safety protocol.
You mentioned that they're using this at home, and recently we were looking at it, like, AI is very easy to get to, and I'm like, oh, wow, you know, you can plug in an equation, it'll explain how to do it. But my concern is that, you know, they understand the why, like, how did you get to this answer? Like you mentioned, the critical thinking.
Right. And I think parents don't really, some parents probably do know a lot to teach their children, but some don't. I mean, I was talking to my child and they're saying, why use Snapchat AI? And I'm like, wow, I'm really not up on Snapchat that much. So let me check into this, because what are you accessing? And so I think that when I say they're using it personally, like, we have to be teaching them those lessons in case they're not getting it anywhere else.
So in school, I mean, I'm just looking at the Magic School, but do we have good barriers so that it's not just like free reign to?
At school, yes.
In school and on the school devices, yes.
Right.
It's their personal devices, or when they're off school, they're exposed to all of that.
Yeah.
And then you kind of have a surface level knowledge of AI, and then they need to build the more in-depth knowledge of, like, just the language and the writing skills and critical thinking skills that you need to develop to be able to kind of go to the next level. It's not just, here, give me an answer to this problem.
Right.
It's how to use it to really help what you're coming up with. So those are kind of the next steps.
Can lead
that
to a
we're
lot
moving
of
towards.
creativity and instruction, yeah.
It really
Yeah.
can be utilized to help advance our students. But I agree, it's important that we as an organization continue to learn. But when it comes to what our students, that we are providing to our students, we have to look at that from the lens of data privacy and safety for our students. Because what we know about AI may differ from the average parent that is at home with their child related to AI. And we try our best to aid and support in those ways, but we have to first think about it from where our level of responsibility is, and that is from educating our students, you know, their standards around that, the resources that we provide to them, and then how can we then be able to support families with what they may have access to beyond that. But first, making sure we have safety with what we are giving them.
And, you know, we all agree safety is number one and adherence to the data privacy statutes. And what I'm hearing from this team is that right now there's 150 data privacy addendums. Every company has their own, and they probably change it once, maybe multiple times a year. Every software tool is bringing on AI. They're trying to come back with a new agreement. And so in the spirit of efficiency, right, what is, I'm wondering, like, how does a school district like Hillsborough or Miami be able to handle, because they have probably an expanded set of tools, handle that changing language, you know, without also putting that on them? Or is there long-term for the board to consider that we have to figure out budgeting in terms of having legal representation review these data privacy agreements so that we're not going to get tripped up in anything?
Ronnie, do you want to speak about the work that has been done or related to
So,
currently?
When we talk about the student data privacy agreements that we have, these are specific agreements that are through the All for Learning organization. So unless there's those modifications to those, which is section H, those modifications are reviewed by legal. That's been going through. We have our legal review those, and then that kind of gets handed through those. So we do have those set up that way. We do review and share all of the ones that are posted to the sites for the individual sites, but the nature of that agreement is that it replaces whatever is already posted for, like, on that website. They are agreeing to that set of terms.
We have our special.
Correct.
Right, because they're creating a blanket one for the nation. Florida has our own.
Florida kind of has our own
its
specific that we've all kind of agreed upon. But within that, the state DOE actually pays for the Florida membership. And there's a handful of us that work through that. St. John's is currently the chair of that, but Flagler, Alachua, there was about 6 different districts that really dove into it. Flagler was one of them. Amy and I presented at multiple conferences as we were leading in this over the last year and a half. But the nice part about that now is that there's enough of these contracts that every single one of these does not have to come down and be signed and negotiated. Because in that process, we ask those individual vendors, when you create them, you're creating that document and then making it available for other districts to quote unquote piggyback in.
So you're pulling
So,
it.
right, so we're able to kind of go to this clearinghouse that's set there and say, hey, this organization, Sarasota Schools is already working with this vendor. Let's look at what they have. It's a standard agreement. If there's any changes, it's going to be in section 8 or section H. We review that. If there's any kind of pieces to that before we would opt to, utilize that contract, we would take it to our internal legal for review to ensure that there was no concerns from what those stipulations were. And then if we agree upon them, then those go through, we have our regular review process, it gets signed off, and then we then have that contract available and posted to the site. So that then we are then covered. So every single contract for every single district does not have to be directly negotiated back and forth, which is a huge thing. So I think that will be beneficial as it goes, because I know, when you talk about like an Orange County or Miami-Dade, a lot of times, like you saw Miami-Dade, they had a lot of their own individual data privacy agreements, and they didn't really until, not sure when they really started using, I don't want to say the wrong piece, but as it got going, it was really a lot of medium and small districts that really gathered towards this, because we just don't have the same kind of resources, to your point, in Miami-Dade and Orange County. They have entire teams of lawyers.
And vendors might be willing to accept their
they have a lot
contract because
more,
they're gonna.
yes.
Right, it's a $5 million
A little bit of a
deal.
stronger arm,
Yeah.
so to speak, than what our smaller rural and medium-sized districts would have. So we kind of teamed up under this opportunity just from the standpoint of, we really all had to get this, to get the amount of work that was required to do.
I have one last question with the AI. Now that Apple Intelligence, just using that specific one, is going to be baked into the hardware, and we're an Apple distinguished district, and all of our technology surrounds around that. Are we going to have ways to have guardrails around that as that rolls in?
Yep, so the device management platforms we can use to help with some of that, and then we're also getting additional training and support from Apple itself on some of those, the tools that are available and that type of thing as well.
So at FETC, we had some really good conversations. Several of us had an opportunity to do some roundtable and do some presentations while we were there. We attended a couple of sessions that were revolving around AI, and specific the Apple AI, which is the more of the hardware-based side of it. And there's some really good things, but to the point, all of that is wrapped up in the Apple MDM that we're able to kind of unlock those as we go. So we can specify classrooms that have completed training. We can we can authorize like grade level bands. We can do specific grade levels within schools so that we can continue to add those tools and opportunity as we're certain that they're appropriate for the students and the grade level and the access, so that they are reasonably or in a good position training-wise to be able to utilize those tools appropriately.
Okay. Well, we can see this is a big part of our future. It's dominated the majority of our meeting today, which is a good thing. We're all learning a lot, and I appreciate all the feedback that you've brought to the board today. If there aren't any other questions or any part of your presentation you'd like to bring forward, we can move on to the next agenda item.
I'd like to just go back to ask finance one question.
Sure.
That I did. You don't get away without getting any questions. No, I was just curious, a district our size, comparably throughout the state, where are they at with the fund balance? Do you have any idea kind of where?
It would vary. There is a report that the Auditor General puts out that compares all the fund balances and who's under 2%, who's under 3%. I would say for a district our size, we are in a decent position. However, that comes off the heels of the ESSER grants and how we utilized it. So I think it'll be very telling in the next 2 years as to how this is controlled. Like I mentioned, 83% is salary and benefits.
Mm-hmm.
It's really about making sure that that is kept very tight.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you for that.
I tag on that. Just as a quick reminder, by statute, every district is required to maintain a 3% fund balance. And just maybe if the public wasn't aware of that. So many districts have adopted a policy because 3% is so small. I frequently hear that is essentially the equivalent of 1 or 1.5 payrolls for a typical district. It's a thin margin. So some districts by policy have set a 5% minimum for themselves.
And to his point, our bi-monthly payroll is a little over $5 million. Our unassigned fund balance, as I mentioned, was $11.8 million. So that is 2 payrolls that we have in our savings, which is a little scary. But to your point, it is right where we should be with our policy.
Very good.
All right, thank you for that.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate the presentation. Okay, so we will move on to 6.02, school choice update. Mr. Finelli and Dr. O'Brien will be staying with us.
Absolutely. I've asked Mr. Freeman to join us just for the very beginning of this so that he can talk a bit about permanent capacity as that relates to our controlled open enrollment window, and we want to make sure we're understanding what we're looking at with our capacity.
All right, good afternoon, Board, Chair, Superintendent Moore. As the slide indicates, our capacity is defined in SREF, or State Requirement for Educational Facilities. And it is the number of students that are housed in a facility at any given time based on a utilization percentage of the total number of existing satisfactory student stations. So what that means is we look at FISH, our Florida Inventory of Schoolhouses, and on the back of FISH it tells us what our capacity numbers are. And then we look in SREF, Chapter 6, and it tells us what our utilization is for that capacity. So for elementary school, all elementary schools in the state of Florida are at 100%. All middle schools in the state of Florida are at 90%. And then for the senior high, for high school, it's based upon the number of enrollment. And in our case, it's 95%. So we look at the total number of capacity, the utilization factor, and then that gives us our permanent capacity of what we have at that particular school. Any questions about that?
I see, though, that these numbers reflect a modified capacity beyond what's provided by the state, that you're also including iFlagler and VPK, which the state does not normally include. Am I correct with that?
Now, in my capacity, and I'm not sure what table you're...
She's talking about choice.
Okay.
Yeah, so answer it.
In my...
Slide 2, sorry.
Yeah, in my capacity, I do not take into account VPK.
Right.
So...
Or iFlagler?
Or iFlagler. Now,
Okay.
that's factored in. I know how many there are, but at the school, I am not factoring those two.
And remembering that is a part of our legislative ask,
Yes.
because when you look at our buildings, for from the lens of permanent capacity with Mr. Freeman, it appears as if we have capacity.
Which you do not.
Which we do not, because there are students that are sitting in those seats, which are our VPK students.
Right, and I track, when each of you, the new board members, came on board, and I would be happy to sit down with the other board members, we had a table of our capacity that we showed you. And it showed you, on the bottom of this, I tracked the number of VPK students we have, because there's 300 and I only use the October numbers from October. I do not look at it every quarter, and that's different than what Mr. Finelli does. But I look at it just strictly in October, and at that time, there were approximately 19 classrooms that are being taken up by VPK across the district. So when you look at our capacity numbers, yeah, it looks like we have space, but in reality, those classes are being occupied by VPK.
Right. I think it's a state, that's why it says voluntary.
And
exactly right.
That is why we're asking for, when it comes to capacity, all of the students that we are servicing within our school system be counted towards that. That's also
Absolutely.
why the board made the decision to go into the contract with the courthouse in order for us to bring space out of some of our schools that we're utilizing for programs to that location in order for us to be able to accommodate the needs that we have within the guidelines of permanent capacity as well as school choice.
And I think many of you know that when we do mitigation agreements, currently we have capacity in elementary, but according to our permanent capacity and the reservations that we have with developments, DRIs that are out there, we do not have capacity at the middle schools and the high schools.
That's why it's projected.
We just updated our fish capacity at Matanzas because we added about 366 seats.
Yeah.
So if you look at my chart, it's showing you that Matanzas does have capacity now. But we take into account the entire high schools, and with FPC, if you add both of them together, we don't have capacity.
And that's just very important as we begin to talk about choice to not, because they are different systems, they're calculated differently. And one school in particular, Buddy Taylor Middle School, though we know we do not have permanent capacity, there is an opportunity for us to allow for choice to Buddy Taylor based on grade level. Because through choice, we do have to quarterly update by grade level if there is room within a grade level. So you will see Buddy Taylor mentioned there. There's a small number of spaces that are available, and that rolls into those different grade levels. We just wanted to be very clear on that, not to confuse this conversation, and definitely not to confuse our community about where we are with capacity related to permanent capacity mitigation, and then what does that look like for choice.
Now, this is just square foot capacity. It does not indicate the impact on being able to have teachers for those students.
Yes.
Okay. And with the Flagler seats, I'm not familiar, does the state have any exclusion requirement like they do for VPK? Or
no, we just make sure that when we're considering it, because we do see students moving back and forth between Flagler and our brick and mortar schools, that we do allow for space for those students when they are returning. Because as we think about capacity and choice and all of that, there's the capacity, can we get them in the building, but we also have to think about the staffing for that, and then the space that is available considering the programs that are not included in capacity.
Okay, so this is just related to the students who are in the program to have space if they come back to brick and mortar. You're not referencing that the teachers are taking up space to, and I see what you're saying.
Okay.
Just to go back to what you said about making that we're not confusing the community, I think this right here clears things up that the community may not necessarily be understanding, and I think we may have to look at how we're communicating that forward. Is, you hear a lot, well, you have capacity. Well, based off of this, you do not, because we're not counting certain things, and then this is what we're doing as we go through the next legislative session to try to get funds for this and so forth, so we can deal with that actually overcrowding that we do have.
By statute, by space, we
Yes.
have no capacity in our secondary school. By statute, we
We do.
have capacity in elementary
That's
school.
right.
By space that's available, considering the programs we have, specifically our VPK and our pre-K students, we are struggling to have space available in our elementary schools, how they are currently set up in zone. Okay?
Right.
But it's
So-
disproportionate.
So we will get into some of that
Yes.
to look at choice, because this really is about communicating to you as a board where we are with choice and to our families, because choice is a huge part of this time of year to make sure families know what they need to do in the event that they would like for their child to attend a school that is not their home zone school. All right?
All right.
Thank you.
Well, I'd like to wish everybody a happy National School Choice Week. So this is pretty apropos that we're having this conversation. And just discuss some of the, dive into the in-district school choice options that we currently have in our district. So we currently offer 4 different choice options for our families. The first one is employee choice. So employees of our district, we do offer them choice for their students, for their children, so that they can be closer with them at the same school. So if we have an elementary teacher that has elementary age kids and they're zoned maybe for a different school or out of district, of course we want to allow them the courtesy of having their children attend the schools that they work at. Our second choice program is controlled open enrollment. And controlled open enrollment is driven specifically off of school capacity. And that's what Mr. Freeman was sharing with you there. We look at the capacity of our schools, how many seats do we have that we can open for choice to our families if they choose to go to a different school than the school that they're zoned for. Our third choice option is hardship choice. So sometimes there are certain circumstances for one reason and another that creates a hardship on a family for them to attend a specific school in zone. And therefore, in those cases, there is an application process where we can look and review the hardship and then approve those for those students when a hardship exists. And then the fourth one is program of choice, or we also call it program of study sometimes. And each of our high schools, and this is high school specific, offers programs that are specific to that high school, like our Fire Academy at FPC or our Law and Justice Academy at Matanzas High School. So if a student is zoned for one high school but really wants to be involved in a program of choice at another high school, they can apply, and if they meet that criteria and space allows, they can be accepted to go into that other high school under program of choice. So those are the 4 programs. We're going to dive into each one just a little bit today. So I shared with you that employee choice is something that we offer to all employees in our district, and the purpose of it is to help to accommodate our students, their children, and making sure that our employees can get to work and get their children to school. One thing that we did change this year, and I did highlight it, or I bolded it at the bottom, is that once a student is accepted on choice, they do not have to yearly reapply. And that is a change. In previous years, they did have to reapply, but when we discussed it and looking at the guiding principles of the district and looking at what's in the best interest of the child, if they're being successful and they are in good standing with attendance and discipline and academics, we want to allow them to continue to go to that school and not have to worry, am I going to get in year to year into that school or that placement? So that is a change this year. Controlled open.
How many teachers are taking advantage of that, or staff?
We have a lot of teachers across the district. Actually, my 3 children are employee choice right now in our district. But we do have a significant amount. I want to say a couple hundred.
Okay.
So controlled open enrollment is the second choice option that we have, and that is the option where if we have available seating in our schools and they're not at capacity, we give families the ability to choice into a school other than their zone school. We currently have in our district, 5 schools that have capacity to accept students, but again, those are with some restrictions and limitations. So Bunnell Elementary has 158 seats available, Old Kings 51, Rimfire 340, Wadsworth 18, and Buddy Taylor 33.
That's to get them to the 90% or to get them to the full 100%?
So that is to get them to 90%. We always leave that 10% capacity in our schools so that when we have new students enrolled throughout the year, we have space for them. We don't want to fill every seat in the fact that, you know, we need to leave space for growth. The other schools are all over the 90% capacity at this time.
So can you tell me what led to the large disparity between Rimfire's space versus other schools?
They have a higher permanent capacity than the other schools. So considering it's, could be a K-8 building, their permanent capacity is much higher than Old Kings, for example.
So when it was rezoned and everything, right, they split.
Remember,
the
at that time, elementary was not rezoned at all.
Oh,
It
that's
was
right.
those students leaving elementary going into
But it was just the
middle
sixth grade
school.
who
Yes.
also left.
Yes, and then the capacity for, the permanent capacity for Rimfire is?
I have 1545.
Yeah.
And if you remember, before we moved the students, the 6th grade out of
that'd
the
be about
elementary,
200 kids, right?
we were at a 90% utilization factor.
Yeah.
Because it was a combination school.
Yeah.
And when we moved to strictly elementary, that gave us more
I
capacity.
see.
It brought it
Mhm.
up to 100%
Yeah.
utilization. So,
Which is why their number, so Bunnell Elementary School, I'm pretty sure they're 1,500 as well, their capacity.
right, 1557?
Yep, so Bunnell Elementary School and Rimfire Elementary School are both at 1,500 versus Wadsworth, their capacity is?
Under 1,000.
908.
So looking at those factors.
So, Mr. Freeman, you're saying that none of these mitigation or these developments coming in are going to significantly change these, are projected to significantly change this capacity?
On the elementary side, none of we are not having to reserve the seats because we have the capacity for those developments coming in. But we don't have it for the middle and the high, so we're having to do the mitigation. We do track the timeline for when the developments come in on when we project the COs and when, you know, how many students, so that we can go back and look at. Matter of fact, we just finished a study with Power School on our projections for what we're going to look like, you know, 5 years from now or so.
Okay.
And so, Mr. Pinelli, these numbers, is this what you track every quarter, like what we're looking at right now? So this changes every quarter?
So actually quarterly, we track more than this. We actually track it by grade level. So we track kindergarten, first grade, and that factors in the availability based on current staffing.
Okay, so like next quarter, these numbers may or may not look different, but every quarter, that's kind of like your, okay.
Yeah, so this is specific to seats for controlled open enrollment. So these are how many seats that families can apply for within the school to go there for next year. But quarterly, we track it by capacity, by grade level, by school.
And Ms. Ruddy, you were asking me about tracking the elementary, and we do track the elementary. You know, right now, I'm looking at Rimfire. There's 138 reserve seats for Rimfire, and so we're tracking the reserve seats for the elementary, for the middle, and for the high school as well.
Okay.
With that 130 number that you've got, I just want to make sure I'm calculating right here. So is that going to be taken away from that 340 potentially based off of your number here with your reservation? Would that take that number down, I'm assuming?
So
We've already accounted for
Okay,
that
that's what I
in
wanna-
here,
it's already been accounted
but
for?
for 1/5 of it.
Okay.
As the development happens, the way that we
Right.
account for it, it's 1/5
Oh,
of that.
so you add a fifth for the next, I guess, number of years the development is expected to.
We account for
complete?
needing 1/5 of those seats perhaps
Oh,
each year.
I see.
Yep.
Okay.
For elementary for choice.
For choice. Yes, for choice.
Yes.
For choice.
Yes.
And I think many of you realize that our DRIs are forever. So those
Yes.
developments that are in the DRIs, those are reserved forever, but the mitigation agreements that we're doing that are not in DRIs are really, the timing is 3 years. Then if they don't build or get the final plat within the 3 years, then that can go away, even if they've paid the money.
Yeah. You got that up front.
Right. That's
If they decide they don't want to do it, that's on them.
It's too bad.
So when we look at control open enrollment for our schools, right now, the schools listed are the schools that are available for control open enrollment and the
Okay.
seats that are available for them, specifically around control open enrollment for choice.
The third choice option is hardship choice, and we discussed this comes up sometimes when we have families that, due to a certain condition that exists for them, that would adversely impact their children from going to a particular school that they are zoned for, and therefore they can apply for a hardship choice. It's reviewed by our hardship choice committee, and then a decision is made about them possibly attending a school outside of zone based off of that hardship.
Where are we at with Volusia County and working with them for kids that are coming from the far corners of Ormond and?
Yesterday, we just had a new planner that is coming on board. She's, matter of fact, coming from Volusia County and was who we were working with to do that. I have talked with her and told her that we would like to bring something to the board in the May timeframe or April-May timeframe as a proposal on how we can, work with Volusia County on.
Because I know it can't be easy for all of you, so, and transportation and all those things.
The kids have, I can imagine
Like
being a
getting up
middle schooler
early.
getting
Yeah,
up.
we have a draft agreement that we've passed back and forth. We've had our attorney look at, and we have an area that we both have kind of agreed to. We're just working out some of the details, and we'll bring that very soon.
Nice, cool, thank you.
And with hardship choice as well, in previous years, it had to be reapplied for yearly. We made a decision to allow those students that are in good standing with the school to remain there in that school.
Are those numbers low for hardship purposes?
So they've been high, but it's because they've had to reapply every year. So I definitely think they'll go down as we move into the new year, because we're allowing students that are doing well on those hardships to remain on those hardships.
And one of the things, we see families attempting to go to a school of choice through hardship. And so one of the things we are going to be doing for the upcoming school year is offering opportunities through control open enrollment more frequently in order to reduce families having to go in through that.
So you're going to time that when it's maybe most appropriate for the student's academics?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Do we have an appeal process for, so if I applied and I was denied for whatever reason, but in my opinion, is there a process that a parent or guardian could go through an appeal process?
Yes, yeah, so there's basically, they apply for a hardship choice. If that hardship choice is denied by the hardship choice committee, it then goes to our academic leadership team committee, that then they review the appeals for choice. And then they can either support the findings of the committee, or they can overturn. And our last choice option is program of choice, often referred to as program of study. And these are different programs that are specific to our two high schools. So each of our high school offers some really great, unique learning opportunities, but in order for it to be cost effective, we offer them at one or the other, not both. And so both schools offer a variety of these programs, and we've outlined the programs on the next slide. So Flagler Palm Coast has their aeronautics program, entrepreneurship program, the fire academy, the IB program. We added this year the junior ROTC, because one school has the Air Force, the other school has the Army, so we wanted to add those as a program of choice or study as well. Technical agriculture and vet assisting. Matanzas High School has the Cambridge or ACE program, cybersecurity, hospitality and tourism, the Army JOROTC program, law and justice program, and the marketing and finance. And something that is different this year is the Allied Health program will be offered at both schools.
Nice.
So that's pretty
Like
awesome.
both?
First
like,
time
Both
publicly
schools.
said.
So when you say, so allied health meaning, so the patient care technician, EKG, phlebotomy, what if, so those three?
We're gonna offer at Matanzas High School as well.
And is this, and this may be another call or meeting, but will Advent be assisting with like the donations to make it just as?
We have follow-up meetings with
Wow.
Advent on, they have been pushing, I don't want
Yeah.
to speak about what they're committing to till we get that really in writing, but we do have a meeting with Advent Health scheduled already in order to look at how we can continue to partner to ensure that both programs are equally robust.
Awesome. All right, there's definitely a need
That
in
is
the
exciting
community.
news,
So I think
yes.
just in the community itself. And can I ask another question? With high schools, what about the middle school? So when I was at like Buddy Taylor, they have specific programs that Indian Trails doesn't have. Do you look at that as school of choice for a program, or is it only for high school?
So currently,
the-
program of choice, those options are only for high school.
Okay.
I think you're thinking of more the electives, because it's really hard in
Yeah.
the required academics to modify that, or what used to be kind of like the magnet programs where, you know, let's say like Rimfire had the medical lab and stuff.
Our flagships.
Yeah,
Yep.
flagships,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
So, you know, I think school choice is amazing, but it should be informed choice, right? So, I would like to know if any of these individual elementary schools or the outcomes of these different programs, much like a college would, hey, we have 98% get a job in the next, after graduating, or we, 95% graduate within 5 years, right? That's what a college does in order to market and explain their outcomes. Can we make that kind of data and student outcomes visible to parents so that they're making the appropriate and informed choice for their children?
Absolutely. Those are, I don't know, Dr. O'Brien, okay.
You're
If
okay.
you, last year, when we came on, and we've been very open about this and our ability to be and sustain an A, it's really caught up in, are we informing our families of the options that they have within our high schools and what those options equate to? And so last year, we really focused on educating our staff, making sure we had some internal processes around programs of choice, making sure that they were all linked to CTE programs, industry certifications that mean something for the students as they graduate. And so now for this year, what we focused on is how do we now share with families what we have and what we've offered. And so we've been going to out to the schools, to different programs. I'll be at Buddy Taylor Middle School speaking with parents about here are these choices, here are the things that they look, this is what they look like at our high schools. We focus on our middle school career fair, making sure that these programs were stationed next to jobs in our community that they would be able to transition to, as well as our high schools are going to be going to our middle schools to be able to give an opportunity for each individual student and their family, if they choose, to be a part of making sure that their selection into high school is where it needs to be. So I think to answer your question in a very long way is yes, we're going to be able to do that. We had to first, over the last 2 years, make sure we had some strong procedures in place in order to help families understand what it is that we what we offer, and now we can really focus on how do we collect the data for our students as they are graduating and moving on. We have a task force, an acceleration task force that meets, and that's exactly what we talked about at our last meeting, and saying we also need some success stories from our students saying, hey, you know, I was in this program and now I'm doing this. And so that's what that team is working on right now, the collection of the data.
I'm also thinking of extending that to elementary, right? What is the % graduation rate of the students who matriculate through? What is the average growth rate on their yearly assessment to break some preconceived notions?
We too are looking to extend to elementary. What we needed to do first is to triage and to make sure that our 8th graders, we did some work last year to catch those 9th graders in the structures we have within our course selection process. This year, it's really to make sure that those 8th graders going in, we're setting them on a path so that we can then now go down from that 8th grade all the way to, so that when they come to middle school, they're already talking about this. They're talking about, I'm going to Flagler Palm Coast High School because I'm going to go and be a part of this program. So our first area was to really triage and make sure that we're not continuing to lose students that are not taking advantage of this, because as we know, only 50% of our students are taking advantage of this at all. And so that was our first steps. But yes, we are looking to bring this down into elementary as well.
If you couldn't tell, this is something that Superintendent Moore is very passionate about.
We do, and we talk about like Diploma Plus and making sure that our students have these as opportunities for them. And so we look forward to working with this board in order to identify ways that we can get this information out to families. And the data, going back to the strategic plan, you will be able to help guide what data we will be collecting on our strategic plan related to these opportunities.
All right, and this is our timeline for application. So we're just in the process now. The communication will go out this Thursday. The initial communication will be from Superintendent Moore to our families, just kind of opening up the processes and sharing with them that more information will be forthcoming. And then every Tuesday and Thursday thereafter, there will be follow-up announcements and advertisements of the programs, explaining how to apply for them, what programs are available to them to choose from. So we're going to be very intentional about getting that message out. Specific messages will go out to 5th and 8th graders about, hey, welcome to Buddy Taylor Indian Trails, welcome to FPC or Matanzas High School, so that they know what school they are zoned to go into. We're also going to share out about programs of choice, controlled open enrollment, and make sure that our families are well informed and aware of our processes and programs that they have the ability to take advantage of. So that initial communication will go out on Thursday. Our window for controlled open enrollment program of choice will open on Valentine's Day on February 14th. The window will remain open until March 7th, and then we will have notified all families of their acceptance into programs by April 1st. And on April 1st, our new student enrollment window, as well as our VPK enrollment window, will open. And then the last slide, if there's any questions that pertain to controlled open enrollment, hardship, or employee choice, those are areas that fall under student services. And then our programs of choice run specifically through our 2 high schools, Matanzas High School and Flagler Palm Coast.
All right, any other questions?
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so that leads us to 6.03, intensive instructional materials and personal finance adoption. Mr. Reeves is coming forward. Thank you.
Absolutely. Good
Welcome.
afternoon, Ms. Furry, board members, Superintendent Moore. Before you today is some information and just a little bit of background to kind of bring you up to speed. So we refined our process about 3 years ago for how we go through statutorily aligning ourselves for our instructional material adoption. Louise Bussard at the time was inside our department, was instrumental in helping kind of help craft this, and we've tweaked it over the last couple of years. And we've used it for our social studies adoption, our science adoption, and then under our new adoption coming this year. And so with that process that we've developed, we have stayed on track with our instructional material adoption with the state of Florida, which is important. And we're getting the latest information in our teachers' hands and our students' hands. And so there's many districts throughout the state that are still working through their social studies adoption 2 years ago, or their science adoption even. So we're very fortunate where we're at with this information. And so what we have for you today is there's actually 2 timelines, and I'll explain why there are. The first one is regarding our intervention resources and materials. K-4 math intervention, K-3 ELA intervention, our 9-12 personal finance, and our 6-12 intensive reading. And the reason we broke it out from the ELA core adoption is for the sanity of our elementary teachers, because there was about 44 options in the K-3 ELA adoption, about 17 sitting in the K-4 math adoption, and then you add a K-12 core adoption on top of that. It's a lot of time and a lot of resources it takes to do that. And so we did a little bit of a shotgun approach this year in that. And so you'll see the first timeline. We started on the 21st of October and worked through the intervention materials first. And we are already gone through our publisher presentations and our committee work already, and getting ready for our public review timelines and such. And so there's that process. And that will conclude, you'll see, in the end of June, which will put us in time with the board so we can make our purchases and do our work for curriculum mapping and our pacing guides to have our teachers ready for the start of the year with our intervention materials. Then our K-12 core ELA material, we shotgun. Once we get past our committee work, we're going to begin working on our timelines for our core. And that way it splits out the intervention time from the core and allows our elementary, especially our K-3-4 teachers, to give valid input, because we've had the best input in the last 2 years, and anticipate the same this year, of our teachers buying to what we're doing. Hundreds of teachers have participated, and we want to keep that going. It helps tremendously to get their input because it's value, but also once we make a decision, it's easier to transition to the materials because they've read it and they're invested in it as well. And so we have a great partnership with our teachers in this process. And so you see that outlined. And the timeline ends for the ELA K-12 adoption October 24th. And that still allows us time. We have another year still on our adopted ELA core materials. We didn't want to waste those dollars. And so we're pushing that to the next year's adoption. So we're going to go through the process of adopting, but hold while we still have our current adoption, valid for the 1 more year, and then implement the following year for the core. And that still gives us time. Usually in October, you can see our timelines. We will begin our CTE and our other electives during that time frame. Any questions about the process?
I see that you have in the process NEFEC Instructional Materials Review Fair. So the state of Florida, right, vets which publishers can provide curriculum.
Correct.
So are you saying that NEFEC is further distilling that or filtering that? Or
No,
are they just hosting it?
They're
for the
hosting in Gainesville typically. They try and bring as many publishers together to have the conversation to show to the 15 NEFEC districts so that it's in one place. Smaller districts struggle a bit with that. We do not, because we bring vendors in. But just for an example, there was, like I said, 44 platforms that were on the adoption list for the ELA K-3 intensive resources. That's a tremendous amount of material.
And that's that collective work with that NEFAC districts to try to get those 44 in. That's our first, go at of looking at those resources. And so we continue to partner with that. That's beneficial for us.
For us.
Because we are larger, we do not have the issue of vendors wanting to come, but we also don't want to parade in 44 vendors into our district as well.
And to help narrow this down a little bit, one of the things we did is we instituted some guidelines. For instance, we were requiring folks to have both digital and print versions of the work. And I didn't really think of the print until I was at a Fatima conference early this year when the West Coast counties that were impacted by the hurricanes were down for several days with no internet. So I said, we need print. So we require that of our vendors, if you want us to consider you, and many districts do, the larger districts do this, we learn, we're required to have a print and digital version of your product. And that kind of cleaned the field up quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then allowed us to focus on what's going to be the best supports for our staff.
So when you're looking at the different options, right, many of them have different theories or approaches to the instruction. And so are you looking at maybe what are the areas that we seem as a district to be struggling with, and, you know, is that maybe content uniquely positioned or a little bit more aligned with those needs, or at least our instructional philosophy?
It's a great question. So we have rubrics that we've developed and modeled off
Separate
of
from the
state.
ones that are on the Florida State?
Correct. We
Okay.
modified that to kind of Flaglerize them, to kind of help guide our conversations on what fits our needs. And last year with science, we had, I want to say it's about 300 teachers that involved in that process. So we're getting tremendous input from our staff as to what they're seeing, in addition to what our specialists are seeing and our academic coaches are seeing. And so that kind of helps triangulate that information of what's the best aligned that meets our needs.
And is that with the parent opportunity as well?
Correct.
Yeah,
So like we've done our committee work and for instance, with our math K4 interventions, we had 25 participants.
Yeah.
Families.
So, yeah, because I've actually been a parent, and so parents can actually sit down with all the educators and review content.
With
and,
our
you know,
vendors.
the room and the vendor, yeah.
And then additionally, when we go to public review, there's another opportunity for the community and our families to look and vet and provide input for us in the process that we select our
So
materials.
that's that. Okay, now I'm putting it all together. So,
Yep, so there's a couple
So
different,
nice.
there's opportunities along the way that we value, that are statutorily in place, but that we value to garner that input and that opportunity for their.
They get to see a narrowed, right, what's been vetted from the school system.
Yeah, the
So,
committee's help narrow, and then we do public review, and then everybody has a chance to review that information.
Can we make sure that that public review is really, that we advertise that? I feel like last year I somehow missed it, but the year before I remember going through a lot of the curriculum and stuff, so, you know, for transparency, I want to make sure parents have that
Absolutely.
opportunity to.
I think maybe referred to, at one point, something was missing, not put on Facebook, and we
That's
got
a
it
big
out there,
one.
so,
I
but
mean-
correct, for our parents who use that platform, but absolutely, that's part of our communication plan.
and I can't remember when it was passed, but the ELA instructional materials have to be based in the science of reading.
Yes.
And so I'm sure that the state is passing that, but I'm wondering if, have our instructors been essentially skilled or provided professional development on what exactly is the science of reading, and how do you take that curriculum and adhere to that practice when you're delivering instruction?
Absolutely. Our specialists work through our coaches to provide that training and support to our staff. And then they go out to schools, our specialists do, to also support.
And they've
the
had
professional
specific
learning.
PD around the
Yes,
science of
we
reading?
have done extensive
Okay.
PL around the science of reading.
Correct.
We've partnered with UFly. We've partnered, we've had foundations training. Right now, we are offering in-house endorsements for our reading.
Oh,
So
excellent.
we have done some extensive training in the area of science of reading.
Awesome, thanks for that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
the
new for
letters.
me, so I appreciate
Yes.
the update on it.
And, you know, there's no, the things that the state came out with a few years ago, they say, hey, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
We have immediately shut down, we weren't doing that. So
We weren't
we're
doing it either,
anyways.
but we made
But
sure
we
we
kind of
weren't.
made sure that everyone understood that we were not doing that and took that off the plate.
Okay.
So I feel we're in a strong position as far as academically with getting quality resources in front of our staff for our students and tying the professional learning to it to help them be successful implementing materials.
And to your point, Ms. Ruddy, what we are also looking at, I just was sitting with a principal that they've had a lot of turnover in their primary grade.